Is there a productive stress level? Now, we are following on from Module 1. We covered the impact of stress on us as individuals and the organizations we work for. Now, we talked about the different stages of stress and the adaptation to stress in Module 1, such as the steps we typically go through from the alarm stage, the resistance stage, and then finally the exhaustion stage. But in this module, we're covering the 4 different levels of stress. Now, if you understand what stress level you're finding yourself in, it's very easy to take yourself back to the desired one. Now, there's only one of them, and that's called the eustress or the productivity level. So at the end of this module, you'll be able to identify where you're at and how to get back to the eustress. So, what are the effects of stress on us? And when is it critical? So stress and fatigue can create safety hazards in our workplace, particularly in safety critical and safety sensitive jobs, and are especially critical whether other workers or public members may be affected. Let's think of a tired pilot, for instance, or an air traffic controller, who's likely to put many other lives at risk, as well as their own, or a tired worker on a scaffold, or tired employees using dangerous machinery, or even a tired truck driver or a driver. Well, it's important to understand what's the difference between a stressor, and work burnout. So let's look at stress. So stress in the workplace is the awareness of not being able to cope with the demands of your environment when this realization is a concern to you. And stresses mean, well, you get 2 types of stresses, the unavoidable stressor and the avoidable stressor. So let's look at examples of the unavoidable stressor. That's, for instance, when you start a new job, you learn a new skill, or COVID, or you've got a family breakup or a relationship issue, or a child is ill. An avoidable stressor is when you undertake a hazardous job when you are stressed, or when you don't have enough sleep or time, or you're under pressure all the time with a toxic environment around you, and a manager or supervisor that's not supporting you, or there's not enough training in the workplace. So what is burnout then? That happens when there's too many stresses for an extended time without rest, and this causes burnout and then health issues. So I thought maybe a good way of explaining what stress can do for us is to use the emotional fatigue bucket illustration. So think of a bucket with holes in it. Now, the simpler bucket model suggests that stress and fatigue may occur when a person's reservoir or the bucket of personal resilience is draining faster than it can be replenished. So think of exciting work or highly rewarded work or a supportive environment and relationships around you, good health, and the rest can really fill a bucket. But if you have excessive or too few demands, extreme working conditions, conflict at work or home, or emotionally draining work, that are just examples of draining this bucket again. So coping is about maintaining the balance between the two. So there's no point in filling the bucket if it drains quickly, is it? So if this happens, recovery may take longer. Now, control of stresses is like a plug. We're plugging the holes in this bucket, or at least reducing the sizes. So in a way, that prevents the work up or the build-up of work burnout. So let's look at good stress. It's good to know what's the difference between good stress and not so good stress. So good stress is when you feel motivated. You can sometimes have a real short-term motivation level or long-term. You have coping abilities. You'll feel that you can perform the task. You feel excited and energized at the same time. Now, this is when it's bad stress or distress. When you feel really anxious, then your creativity drops. It can be short-term or long-term stress. It can be beyond your coping abilities, and it's rather unpleasant. So let's look at the next illustration What is the ideal stress zone for us? Now, the relationship between stress and disease is now well established, but was not consistently recognized in the past. Now, there are typically 4 levels of stress as indicated in this graph. Now, Professor Seeley's model helps us understand stress better and helps us manage our levels of stress. So when you are in the calm or relaxation zone, now that's the green arrow, our bodies use less oxygen and blood flows more quickly through our circular system. The stage where more encouragement makes us more productive is called the eustress, or the euphoric stress, or the productive level. That is the yellow arrow. Now, the part where we start losing performance due to more stimulation is called distress. Now, that is when the line gets red. And then it can go worse. It can become extreme distress or burnout. And when stress presents itself, high lactic acid levels in our body causes discomfort, such as anxiety attacks or panic attacks. Now, if there is too much of this lactic acid level presenting itself, the genes related to chronic inflammatory responses, which contribute to heart disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and diabetes, are then switched off because you go in defense mode. Now, indeed, the term stress is misused everyday language to cover both eustress and distress. However, as you can see, there is a fundamental difference between the two. Now, one of the most crucial stress management skills is recognizing where you are on this graph and how you can get back to the eustress zone, the productivity zone. So what happens if you think you are productive and in the eustress, but you feel distressed? You lose momentum and you're pushed into the distress zone. Now that you see how the cycle of stress works, let's examine the qualities of each zone for better understanding so that you know where you're at. If you know where you are on this scale, it's much easier to return to the productive zone. Now, let's look at the calm zone. You want to be in the zone, but not for too long because it makes you feel bored and then you become unproductive. Think of your teenagers lying on the couch, for instance. Imagine all of us are like that. That's when you feel life is great, everything's going to be fine, the world is beautiful, everything's so calm, there's plenty of time to relax, so there's no push for you to do anything. Now, the next one is called the eustress. That's the ideal level for maximum productivity. You want to really try to be in this zone. This is the excitement zone because it encourages us to move forward and faster. We are more creative in this zone, and we feel like we are in a state of flow. So nothing else matters but the task at hand. We are focused, utterly aware of time. We have plans, agendas in short, and we feel on top of the world. This is the achievement zone. Now, if you want to make a difference and deliver added value, this zone is the place to be. So the feelings associated with this zone is when you feel excited. You say, this is going to be a challenge. Timing is everything. I love it. And once I'm through this, I know this will be a success. What about the extreme distress zone? It's really important not to go this way. This is where your productivity level and creativity level drops. We lose control of the situation and are increasingly at mercy of the events. That is when your atmosphere or your environment is starting to control you, and you no longer are in control of your environment. So the feeling of hopelessness is a sign of being in the zone. That's that negativity zone. That's when you start saying, oh, this is not going so well. This is going to be a disaster. No one understands what I'm going through. Well, let's look at the work burnout or the fatigue zone. Do you want to be here? No, never. That's when you really give up. This is the give up zone. That's when your words start becoming like, or you say, this is a disaster. I can't concentrate. I'm hopeless. There's no end to this. Well, how do you get here? If you stay too long in the previous zone, you will eventually land up here where it becomes too extreme and your body will suffer. So you don't want to be here at all, and you need to start taking big steps to get out of this place altogether. So how do you get out? To get out, you need to basically change your view and take those major steps. Talk to people, because small steps may no longer be enough. Remember, the best person to get you out of this place is you. So as you know yourself better than anyone else. So sometimes just knowing that you have ended up in the zone, you have made meaningful progress and can take successful steps to get out of here. Well, should you try to avoid coming to the zone ever? It is natural to come to the zone now and then. It is easy to be pushed from the eustress zone into the distress zone when an unexpected event, shock, or trauma presents itself. Now, the problem is not avoiding this stage, as it happens to everyone at some time or another, but finding a way back to the eustress zone is quite important. So how do we typically need to respond to stress? And if someone in our department is stressed out, what do you do? Well, a company should respond in a workplace to stress with an individual in the following way. They need to investigate the facts of what is the reason for the stress. Then make a decision about the work-relatedness of the problem that creates that stress. Then discuss the results of what your findings are. Then suggest solutions. Then go and get more solutions. And then you agree on implementing more solutions by asking other people, perhaps family members. In this slide, there's a few helplines. So if you find yourself in the last two levels and you have no idea of getting out, please contact one of these contact numbers. Now, here is a take-home message. Now, some important questions before I say that. Is it easy to change your reactions to stresses? I can tell you no. Is changing our reactions possible and vital for our health? Definitely yes. So I suggest positive self-talk and reaffirming statements to yourself can be extremely powerful and can disintegrate negative beliefs of certain stress responses. Try different methods and see what works and what doesn't work for you. But next time you talk about your stress, let's hope that we'll not be referring to the distress kind of stress, but the abounding eustress instead. So for your own health and well-being, as well as in many social and workplace settings, eustress has a lifetime of benefits waiting for you to explore. And in Module 3, some stress management skills will be discussed so that you can stay in this productivity zone for longer.